women who are out there today, here in New South Wales, who were out there yesterday, the thousands of men and women around Australia, not just here in New South Wales, up in Queensland, down in South Australia where it's also been a difficult week, down in Victoria. All those have come from other states, Tassie, the West, the ACT, up in the Territory. I want to thank those who've come from overseas, the Americans, the Canadians, our Kiwi cousins, those who've come to support us in this hour of need. I particularly want to thank Commissioner Fitzsimmons and the amazing team he leads here in New South Wales, and for the opportunity to be briefed this morning. And I want to commend the Premier, who I've been speaking to over the course of the last week, and for the tremendous job she's been doing with her team here in New South Wales to respond to this disaster, this threat that is ongoing and has been going for many, many months now. A few months ago I was up in Canungra when the first of these dreadful fires started to appear. That continued down through Rappville as Premier and I stood together in that devastated community. When we got out to Wilberforce just a couple of weeks ago, up in Queensland, and here we are again today, following the terrible tragedy that occurred earlier this week. Andrew O'Dwyer and Jeff Keaton, their families, Melissa, and their little daughter Charlotte, 19 months, Jessica and their 19-month-old son, Harvey. When our volunteers go out there, they do it for so many reasons, but I can't help but thinking that one of the most important things that inspires them is their love of family. Family is community, and they're out there defending their community on that fateful night. And Jenny and I, our heart broke when we heard of their terrible loss and their great sacrifice. And I just want to extend to them our great sympathies, our love and support. They're getting tremendous support from their Rural Fire Service family out there at Horsley Park and from the broader family of firefighting communities all around the country. What we, the rest of us, can offer them is our honour, our acknowledgement and our respect for what they have done for all of us. There are over 100 fires active in New South Wales today, and many of those are quite serious, but I do remind people that there are also severe fires in South Australia and in Victoria. I spoke to the South Australian Premier last night when I arrived back in Australia to get an update, and there's been loss of life there and there are fears for others. We've heard further news this morning of people missing, an individual missing out in Lithgow, where the fires also have raged overnight. No one wants to be out there fighting these fires. No one wants these fires to be happening at this time. But when those fires do occur, as they have for a very long time in this country, then those who have, and there's over 200,000 of them in Australia, who have signed up and said and put their hand up to be there to defend their communities, then they go out and they do this work, and they do it on behalf of all of us. And they're getting tired and they're getting fatigued because this has been going a very long time. And this is one of the key issues that I've been in discussion with the Commissioner about this morning and also with the Premier. And I know that Minister Littleproud, who joins me here, and I thank you for that, David, and the work you've been doing, and the Deputy Prime Minister during my absence. We will continue to look at all of these issues as we go forward. The New South Wales Rural Fire Service and all the fire services across Australia will continue to get everything they need from the Commonwealth. As you know, the operational response to these disasters is delivered and is run at a state level, but with great Commonwealth support. In talking to the Commissioner, I want to acknowledge what he has acknowledged, and that is, as we face these fires at the moment, I want to assure Australians of this, because I know people are anxious, and I know people in some places are rightly fearful of what is literally at their door. And the haze and the smoke and all of these things heighten that anxiety as you think about your kids and your family, and you can see the red tinge at night if you're close enough. But our fire services in Australia are the best in the world. And the response to these disasters, these fires, is the best in the world. This is a time when Australia should be very, very proud that we have the best resourced, most coordinated, best equipped fire services of any nation on earth to deal with this. And that's because as a country, we're used to dealing with fires, admittedly, and very rightly. This season is much more lengthened and has started a lot earlier. And there isn't the respite rains that we can expect any time soon. And that is making this season harder than many we've seen for a long time. But it is also true that after every fire, we sit down, we learn the lessons, and we make sure we're better prepared next time. And that's what's happened on this occasion. The coordination is seamless between not only the states and the Commonwealth, but between the states and overseas jurisdictions as well. Our Defence Forces are deploying wherever they're called upon. And particularly now, as you look at the burnt out, vast territories across, particularly here in New South Wales, but in other states as well. There is wreckage to clear, there are trees to remove, there is access that needs to be provided to people's properties and businesses and homes. And that's the work that our Defence Forces can, are and will continue to play, and they've been doing it since September. Airlifting, ensuring they're providing night flights for reconnaissance, and providing that heavy support that is needed, that is backing in and complementing the amazing work of our firefighters. You know, there's some 70,000 registered firefighters here in New South Wales alone. That's bigger than the entire size of our Defence Forces and reserves. So we're talking about an enormous force that is drawn together here in New South Wales, and that's about a third of the national force. So they will continue to get everything that they need. And I've run through some matters this morning with the Commission, and I've been speaking to the Premier as well. There will be a COAG meeting in March. And at that meeting, as always, I've already put on the agenda the response capabilities for future disasters, and lessons, of course, will be learned by these responses. But I do know that the response you're seeing right now is informed by how this work has gone on each and every day since the last fire. I mean, Emergency Management Australia, which is the Commonwealth agency responsible for our engagement, both in drawing in the ADF and the other systems of support, including the important income support. And later today, I'll be announcing with the Premier further disaster assistance payments into new areas of affected areas as these payments have been rolling out. So you have members of Government Services Australia who are out there making sure people get their payments and their support. And so that will continue to roll out. And Emergency Management Australia does this job 365 days of the year. I appreciate that when things get as anxious as they have become, then people will think, you know, what's been prepared, or is anything happening, or have they thought of this? I understand that those anxieties are positively meant and are natural. But I want to reassure you that our officials, our commissioners, our firefighters, both those professionals who are paid and those who are unpaid, they are doing this year-round to prepare for events just like this. And that is why this response is something where we're seeing the best of Australia, not the contrary. Flowing on from that public anxiety, there has also been other issues that have been raised, not just about the response and the resources, which I think I've addressed, but also around issues of climate policy. It has always been the case, our government has always, and I have always acknowledged the connection between these weather events and these broader fire events and the impacts globally of climate change. It's one of many factors, as I've said. The drought conditions have certainly been a big contributor in terms of the dryness of the fuel load. There are also many other issues, as you would be well aware, and they'll all come under scrutiny as we prepare for what needs to happen next time. Issues of management in national parks, of fuel loads, issues of backburning and managing native vegetation and building codes and and all of these sorts of things. Ensuring that our communications programs are important. There are some fires that have been started by just carelessness. Others, sadly, have been the result of direct arson. Many have been created by dry lightning strikes. And understanding all of that, it will be important as we move through to the next phase. But there is no argument about the links between, in my view and the government's view, and any government in this country, about the links between broader issues of global climate change and weather events around the world. But I'm sure people equally would acknowledge that the direct connection to any single fire event, it's not a credible suggestion to make that link. So we must take action on climate change. We are taking action on climate change. At the last election, I said we would. I said we would meet and beat our Kyoto targets. I said we would meet our Paris commitments in a canter, and we will. We welcome the record investments in renewable energy technologies, and at the same time, we welcome the fact that we're pursuing our climate policies while getting electricity prices down, as the ACCC has noted today, with a $65 reduction as a direct result of the policies we've put in place to get power bills under control in this country. And we'll do it without economy wrecking or job destroying reckless targets. We'll do it with sensible targets that gets the balance right. That's what I promised Australians when we went to the last election, and that's what I'm committed to doing. Now, two other points. I've obviously returned from leave, and I know that that has caused some great anxiety in Australia, and Jenny and I acknowledge that. If you had your time over again and you had the benefit of hindsight, then would have made different decisions. I'm sure Australians are fair-minded and understand that when you make a promise to your kids, you try and keep it. But as Prime Minister, you have other responsibilities, and I accept that, and I accept the criticism. And that's why Jenny and I agreed that it was important that I return, particularly after the terrible tragedies that we saw late this week. I get it that people would have been upset to know that I was holidaying with my family while their families were under great stress. They know that I'm not going to stand there and hold a hose. I'm not a trained firefighter, nor am I an expert like those who sit in the next room and doing such an amazing job. But I'm comforted by the fact that Australians would like me to be here, just simply so I can be here alongside them as they're going through this terrible time. And so do those Australians who I had caused upset to, and I apologise for that. And it's important that I think when you are confronted with these things, that you front up about them and you're honest with people, and that's what I'm seeking to do now. But I think the time for that discussion is over. We need to focus on what's going on out there today. And let me finish by simply saying this, and I apologise for the lengthy nature of my remarks this morning. It's time to be kind to each other. This is not a time for division. It's not a time for argument. It's not a time for partisanship. It's not a time for point scoring. It's a time to support people who have a very important job to do, to give them the space and the time, to give them the support they need. If people have got something they want to contribute, that's fantastic. And I want to thank all those who've turned up to fire stations and made donations, and you might want to think of dropping off some toys for the kids of the firefighters who may not have had time to go out and buy some at this Christmas because they've been too busy. I think these are things that people can do constructively. Australians, we've got to rally together. The time for argument is not now. That's not to say that there's no time to talk about important issues like climate change. Of course there is, and we are talking about it. But let's do it in a way that doesn't distract from the very immediate need of protecting people's lives, protecting their property, honouring those who are out there doing everything they can. And so I'd just simply ask people, particularly at this Christmas time, to reflect on that, to come together, to support each other, and to focus on the things that we need to do now. And on the other side of these fires, Australia will prevail. We always have. Australia is the most amazing country on earth. How do I know that? Because I see what's happening out there right now on those fire fronts and in the communities that have suffered terrible loss. That is why Australia is the best country in the world. That's the country I'm proud to lead. And that's the country that I know we all support. And I know that's the cause to which we will all rally now and focus on supporting our fellow Australians.